that kind introduction, Tom. That is a little surprising, but I'm honored to be able to speak with you guys. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Glad to be here. Glad to see your faces. I'd like to offer a special thanks to Graham and to all the veterans here for your service to our country and keeping us free. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations, graduates. You've reached an important milestone. The really good news is that you are well prepared to look out your windshield and see a beautiful road ahead. And I'm confident that you've been prepared here very well for a very bright future. I'm 66 years old. I've got maybe a clearer view in my rearview mirror than I do on the windshield. But the beauty of that is hindsight is 20/20. And so as a result of that, I've learned a few lessons. I've taken the time to kind of consider that, think about maybe why some of those things work. And I'm hoping to share some of those with you today. If you can pick up on one or two of those things and benefit from it, I'm going to view that as a success. I did hear what Tom said. Yeah, you guys don't always listen to advice, but I'm going to give it anyway. So, as Tom had said, I grew up on a farm in Hubbard Lake, Michigan, which is hour and a half south of here. It was a farm where we grew crops, hay, beef cattle, and so I had that sort of experience. In the process, I ended up, of course, my dad worked at Besser Company in Alpena, and so because he was working full-time and sometimes overtime, of course, we had plenty of need for family involvement in completing work on the farm. I really enjoyed the mechanical work, the running the equipment, fixing the equipment. Proved to be pretty handy with that, so ended up with a reputation for being able to fix things, and as a result of that, ended up with some dreams about what I could do with those skills. So I did attempt to build a homemade motorcycle. It never worked. I built a snowmobile out of plywood with a North spreader chain as the track. That never worked. But what that did do is that did enable me to get the reputation of being pretty handy with mechanical things, being able to build things and so forth. Got invited to help out neighbors, friends, and ultimately got the reputation that Tom talked about with the GTO of knowing how to make cars go fast. That caused people to bring their cars to me to be souped up. I started charging for those services. That's really at the root of how I got started in business. So that's a little bit about my early history. I'd like to talk about 6 different lessons that I have learned, and I'll start out with a little bit of information on 3 of the first ones. And the first ones are the value of having a dream, the power of compounding, and the value of striving every day to make today just a little bit better than yesterday. So if we look at the value of having a dream, when you grow up with fairly modest beginnings, it's relatively easy to have dreams that are achievable. And so my dream was to have a mini bike, because the driveway to our farm was about a half mile long. So the nearest neighbor was half mile away, and the other neighbors were spread pretty sparsely around the area. And so some of my buddies had mini bikes, and I rode a bicycle. So I really wanted a mini bike. And so I asked my dad if he would buy a mini bike for me. His answer was, no, but I'll give you a cow. a mini bike. But what he said was, look, if you want a mini bike, this Friday, there's an auction sale in Emerson, Michigan, a little town just west of Alpena, and you can take your cow there, you can sell it, and buy yourself a mini bike. But that cow is going to have a calf in a few months. If you're patient, you'll wait till that cow has a calf. And if you wait till that calf grows up, you can sell that calf. But if that calf is a heifer, you can breed that calf and you can have 2 calves. And while we were having the conversation, there was no doubt in my mind that cow was going to the auction. But that was early in the week, and after I slept on that for a couple nights, I started realizing the wisdom and the gift that I was just given. So I decided, no, I'm going to keep the cow. I'm going to build a little herd, but I still want a mini bike. So that really was where I started then dreaming about how can I work around this? How can I have both things? And so the dream got bigger. And what I discovered was that my dad's chainsaw motor would fit into the frame of my bicycle. So I asked my dad if I could use his chainsaw, and he willingly agreed. Now, think about this. I mean, the chainsaw probably cost more than a mini bike would have. But he was wise enough to understand that I was going to learn a lot in this process. And that chainsaw motor was probably not going to run a lot on that motor, on that bike. So he gave me the chainsaw, let me use that. Now I came to the conclusion that, oh my goodness, I need some brackets, I need to change some things here. Geez, I need to weld these parts together. And so we didn't have a welder on the farm, but we did have a nice workshop, and we had a motorized bandsaw, and an old drill press, and an old lathe. We didn't have a welder. So, but whenever we needed something welded, we'd go down to Dagan Brothers in Hubbard Lake, and we'd have them welded. So I asked my dad, could we take these parts down to Dagan Brothers and have them welded? And my dad said, not right now. The next day when he came home from work, he brought a welder and a manual on how to weld. And we unloaded it from the truck, and he said, figure it out. And so, well, that was the point where I wish I would have been through this program. But I wasn't, so I tried to figure it out. I didn't learn how to weld by myself, but I did learn how to stick the parts together well enough to kind of make it work. And so as I proceeded with that, ultimately what happened is I ended up finding, well, actually I ended up getting a job then, and I didn't have a driver's license yet. So I got a job now at a little motorcycle shop in Alpena that sold Harley Davidson race bikes. And so now I came across a bike that was in need of repair. I was able to buy that, and of course now the dream got a little bit bigger. And so I abandoned the bicycle, gave my dad this chainsaw back, and proceeded from there. But the lessons that I learned out of that were, first off, having a dream motivated me to continue to strive every day to get a little closer to that dream. And even though I wasn't competent to do the things that needed to be done, if I just took action, I just tried to do something, I could get closer to the dream. And so I every day I kept striving to get a little bit closer. Part of what I was doing there is experimenting when I didn't know how to do something, but I would experiment. If it worked, I'd do more of it. If it didn't work, I'd do less of it, and I kept working that forward. So the value of the dream was significant. And as I look at what you guys have done here with the artwork and what Tom does and how that artwork develops, that starts with a vision in your head, starts by without knowing exactly how you're gonna get to the result, but you just keep working it forward. So you've gotta have a dream. Of course, my second lesson, I learned the power of compounding from the cattle, and ended up striving to make today just a little bit better than yesterday, and ultimately ended up modifying those dreams. The fourth lesson really was experimenting regularly. I already talked a little bit about that. It's pretty simple. Experiment, try something, whether you know anything about it or not. If it works, do more of it. If it doesn't work, do less of it. Thomas Edison ran his labs that way. He didn't try necessarily to figure out what worked scientifically and then experiment with it. He just experimented. If it worked, he would then try to figure out, gee, why did that work? So that he had more depth of knowledge. If we go back for a moment to compounding, Albert Einstein reportedly said that power of compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe. And he also reportedly said that that's the 8th wonder in the world. So you had a pretty smart guy there that thought that was pretty important stuff. And his comments were focused on financial interest and earning interest. But I've come to believe that also applies to knowledge and it applies to skills. And so if you keep striving every day to make today a little bit better than yesterday, you start compounding your knowledge, you start compounding your skills, and you can have ultimately financial freedom if you make the right choices. The fifth lesson that I'd like to talk about is how to let Mother Nature work in your favor. And of course, when you're on a farm in northern Michigan, the growing season is pretty short. When the crops ripen, you've got a fairly small window of when you can harvest. And you really need to harvest when Mother Nature is working in your favor. And so you've probably heard the term make hay when the sun shines. So that's kind of what that's about. And the fellas that try to farm on their schedule so that they can accommodate all sorts of other activities tend to struggle because they tend to try to harvest, they tend to try to do things when Mother Nature isn't exactly working in their favor. And Mother Nature is tough. So one of the things I learned on the farm is to work in sync with Mother Nature, and that can be extremely powerful if you figure out how to do that. How do you apply that normally if you're not a farmer? Well, help people when they have a need, not when it's convenient for you. Help customers when they have a need. And in particular, if you help people when they're desperate, they really appreciate that. And when they appreciate that, they talk positively about you, they talk to others about you. Those folks remove pebbles from your path that you didn't even know were in your path. And so now Mother Nature is working in your favor. The other lesson along with Mother Nature is, I started looking at time differently than a lot of other folks. So it's fairly common for people to look at work as a 40-hour work week. But that's pretty tough to do on the farm, like I explained. What I started doing, and really this came from my dad, there's 24 hours a day, 7 days in a week, so you've got 168 hours in a week. And so I really started looking at a week as 168 hours. Yep, some of those you need for sleep, some of those you need to eat and take care of normal activities. But if those were the things that were flexible, and then I did the work when Mother Nature was favoring it, when the neighbors needed help, when customers needed help, that worked a lot easier. I guess I just talked about the sixth lesson, which was how to cause luck to work in your favor. And so luck is very similar to Mother Nature working in your favor, but essentially by working on other people's schedules, they're getting pebbles out of your path that you didn't even know were there. So those are the 6 lessons. An absolutely outstanding example is a fellow by the name of Usain Bolt. And he's a Jamaican fella that earned the title of the world's fastest man. And he earned that by running really fast, where a normal male human can run 8 miles an hour. At his peak, he ran 27.7 miles an hour. So absolutely outstanding. Ultimately ended up winning 8 Olympic gold medals, 11 Amateur Athletic Federation World Championships. So just outstanding results. His friends called him Lightning, so Lightning Bolt. And now he has 3 children. One of his sons he has named Thunder. How would you like to be the parents of a kid that lives up to that reputation? Now, did Usain do that? Did he run that fast as a child? Not a chance. Did he do that without lots of hard work and practice? No. Did he have setbacks? All sorts of setbacks. But by applying similar lessons to what I talked about with lots of hard work, he was able to achieve what just about 7 billion other people in the world couldn't. So, outstanding. Are we going to be able to achieve that level? Probably not. Can we achieve with the freedoms that our veterans have gotten for us, with the freedoms we have, are we able to achieve outstanding things if we apply these lessons? Well, I think so. And I think you guys are well prepared to do that. So my hope for you is that you dream big, you wake up every day striving to make today just a little bit better than yesterday, you experiment regularly, you do more of what works, you do less of what doesn't work. Hopefully you find some things that work that you really like. You use your 168 hours, the power of compounding, and the freedoms that our veterans have earned and protected for us to go out and live your version of outstanding. Thank you.